things first, there are no big narrative spoilers for Far Cry 5 here beyond what's already been announced to the world, so have no fear if you want to experience the story for yourself totally fresh. With that out of the way, we've finished the game and wanted to share our thoughts and impressions from our time in Hope County, so without further ado, here are 5 things we loved about Far Cry 5 and 3 things we didn't. First off, we loved that Far Cry 5 feels like a genuinely open world. Once the obligatory tutorial/story setup stuff is out of the way, which should take you around about an hour or so, you are honestly free to go anywhere you like in the game's 3 regions, right off the bat. You can prioritise completing story missions, freeing outposts, finding side quests, exploring the map, unlocking guns for hire, completing challenges to unlock perks. There's really no right or wrong order in which to do things. The resistance meter in each region will force you into certain story altercations once it's been filled to a certain degree, but other than that, the game will just leave you alone to make your own fun, which feels genuinely liberating. In a lot of games, this could have risked the experience feeling quite aimless. But the fact is, wandering any direction in Hope County for just a few seconds will always yield something interesting. Whether you come across a civilian in need of rescue, a local with a multi-part side mission, a shrine set up to honour a local stuntman, or just nature being scary and awesome, there's always something vying for your attention.
Now they're heavily armed and wary of outsiders. Just my kind of people, huh? Wait, horse out.
In a sort of related note, the guns for hire are probably the most fun new addition to the game. Most of these colourful characters will require a few favours before they agree to join your team. But once unlocked, they'll provide assistance whenever you should need it. You could argue that Far Cry's combat really didn't need a feature added to make it even easier, which having 2 guns for hire tagging along with you to an outpost almost certainly does. But the thing is, guns for hire can and should be tailored to suit you and the particular situation you find yourself in from moment to moment. You don't have to use any of them at all, of course, but each of the 9 companions has a very specific skill that you can call in. Let's say you're not great at flying a plane, or you just don't like doing it. Nick Rye can be radioed in to do it for you. Or let's say you're assaulting an outpost, a chopper has appeared out of nowhere and you're under heavy fire, but you don't have the right weapon to take it down. Call your old buddy Herc and his rocket launcher for assistance and he can make the problem go away. There's an element of problem solving to finding the right individual for the job, because bringing in the wrong person can almost certainly make life a lot harder. You really don't want to bring a cougar to a C4 fight, for example.
I am Charlemagne Victor Beauchamp. Now, if you require more brevity in your day-to-day life, you can just call me Sharky.
Roots draw nutrients from their centers flesh and let it weather the coming floods.
In many, many ways, Far Cry 5 feels a lot like Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 3. But the changes that have been made tweak the experience in subtle ways. The perk and challenge system is one such change up to the system. There's no longer any need to skin animals or to craft in order to upgrade your weapons or inventory space. This is taken care of by perks, which in turn are mostly handed out by completing challenges, and by finding perk magazines stashed across the open world, most of which require some light puzzle solving to be busted open. Perks cover all manner of improvements, from inventory space and guns for hire, to health and money management, to running speed and fishing prowess. Yet, the more you play the game, the more tricky perk points will be to unlock. So it is wise to keep in mind the bigger perk bonuses you want to work towards, instead of splurging them all on fairly cheap improvements early on. The map editor is a huge extra chunk of Far Cry 5 with amazing potential that many players might not even even bother checking out. Many Far Cry fans, like our own Ian Higton, fell in love with the Far Cry series because of the editor in Far Cry Instincts. But after Far Cry 2, it felt like that particular corner of the franchise was slowly being phased out. The editor in Far Cry 5, however, takes things back to the glory days, and this time there are so many assets to choose from, including assets from other Ubisoft franchises like Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed, that it can actually be a bit daunting to begin with. It'll be very exciting to see what out there creations players start coming up with this tool. There's so much scope here for incredibly inventive maps. And after a little bit of practice, most of the editor was intuitive and simple to use. Any fans who have made maps in Far Cry games before will be very pleased with the offerings here. The new map editor is a brilliant tool, and as a result, we're expecting loads of fun and crazy, and also some undoubtedly very shit, user-created levels to play on very soon. Back in the main campaign, there are some really fun side quests tucked away in the world that reward exploration, offer something different to do than just shoot a bunch of identical bad guys, and showcase Far Cry's signature dark humor, which, apart from some pretty hilarious item descriptions, is sadly scarce in Far Cry 5 otherwise. It's here that the setting for Far Cry 5 works best, where you feel the creators had a laugh poking a bit of fun at American stereotypes and cliches.
This is it! It all comes down to this! We need to beat them at their own game! Only you can save us! Have I spoken enough cliches to get you fully on board?
The game never really goes in deep on current real-world events, save for a few sly nods to building walls and one side quest in particular that contains references to a highly sensitive leaked videotape that may or may not feature water sports. The funniest lines in the game, though, probably go to longtime favourite Herc, and maybe to some of the stuntman Clutch Nixon anecdotes that narrate your attempts to emulate his greatest death-defying feats. Murica at its finest.
A beautiful finish.
All that said, there are a few things about Far Cry 5 that left us disappointed. For us, it felt like the story never really got going. There were really interesting ideas buried in there, concerning cults, religion, and freedom that were only touched upon but never fully explored. And there were lots of characters, particularly the villains, that we never actually got to know. Perhaps it's partly to do with the fact that past Far Cry antagonists like Pagan Min and Vaz were just so charismatic, interesting, and at times darkly funny, but the Seed family by comparison were one note and, honestly, kind of boring. The father, or Joseph Seed in particular, remains a bit of a non-entity up until the end, despite a decent performance, and you never really get a sense of why so many people are willing to kill and to die for him. The intense Jared Leto vibes you get from him don't really help much on that front, though we will say the game features some of the greatest snot acting we have ever seen.
Rook, put the cuffs on him.
I know you've heard stories about me. That I'm a liar. A manipulator. That I poison people's minds.
In addition to never letting antagonists off the leash story-wise, the big boss showdowns for the individual members of the Seed family are a bit of a letdown too. After all these years, Ubisoft doesn't really seem at all sure how to do boss fights still. If you played a Far Cry game in the last few years, you'll know not to really expect much enemy variation, and that when there's supposed to be a big confrontation, the games generally tend to just up the number of enemies and leave it at that. In Far Cry 5, more than ever, this is really more frustrating than challenging, particularly if you prefer stealthier approaches to combat, as every big encounter more or less forces you to go in all guns blazing, even if you've played things cautiously up to that point. The major boss fights do try and mix things up, but never quite manage to do anything genuinely new or interesting.
In this time, the lives of the few outweigh the lives of the many.
Recent Far Cry worlds have been fun to tool around in because there's something weirdly relaxing about the rhythm you get into while playing them. Activate radio tower, clear outpost, hoover up side quests, lather, rinse, repeat. But as much as Far Cry 5 tries to change this formula, it still can't escape the fact that it's all very, very familiar now. And that's okay if all you want is more of the same from previous titles. It's good, mindless fun to systematically take down an outpost, and a lot of players will like that familiarity. But equally, many won't. And if you were hoping for a huge shake-up to what you've played before, you won't find it here. Additionally, the enemy AI is dumb as a post and as of right now, buggy to boot. So mindless fun can sometimes devolve into hugely frustrating times as enemies either just don't react or things go completely tits up and it doesn't feel like there's much you can really do about it. In the end, how much you enjoy Far Cry 5 comes down to how much you're willing to overlook for a bit of dumb fun in a huge and often very pretty open world. We have loads more Far Cry 5 videos on our channel, so maybe check out one of those as they're on screen right now. We'll also be kicking off a co-op Let's Play next week, so do stay tuned for that. Or you can just have a look at any of the other games we've been covering too. Do give us a like or a subscribe if you enjoyed to stay up to date with more from Eurogamer, and thanks for watching. Bye!